Hello and welcome to Words Want Wisdom. I am absolutely delighted to have Bronagh Brennan from Gro-Agri with me today. Bronagh and I, our paths crossed maybe about 6-7 weeks ago. And after talking to Bronagh, I discovered that she has a story that needs to be shared, and she very graciously agreed to take part in the Words Want Wisdom podcast. You have come through so much and endured, and you're sitting there with a smile on your face, so put together that I am in awe. And I am not exaggerating, folks. When you hear this girl's story, you will also realize that we don't have any problems. That's what I realized when I came away after talking to you. I don't have any problems in my life. So without any further ado, Bronagh, we're going to get stuck in.
Yeah, no problem.
So I think the best place to start is to give a little context about what you have accomplished in the here and now. And then we'll do a wee bit of time travel and we'll go right back and come full circle then to share your story. Because I think that if we start off with your business that you have just launched, you can tell us about Gro-Agri, your consultancy business. You can tell us about the aims of it, your vision for it, what it's about. And then we'll go back and look at the journey that brought you up to this point, because it's out of this world. It's, nearly unbelievable. And yet here you are. So Bronagh, tell us a little bit about Gro-Agri, your aims and vision for it.
Yeah, so Gro-Agri was formed this year, started in April, and it's a consultancy firm that supports rural and agri-businesses and farm businesses. So a bit of background, my degree was HR, then I did a postgrad in employment law, and then did my master's in business for agri-food and rural development. And I'm married to a dairy farmer.
Okay.
And I am a farmer's daughter as well. So farming's kind of...
Agriculture, farming, it's in your blood.
It is. And I suppose once it's in your blood, it doesn't leave it. So job-wise, prior to this year, I managed farm business sustainability programs, and also had worked in HR and training and development. So Gro-Agri kind of covers all of those bases. We look at business strategy, we look at sustainability, we look at training and development, leadership, and all those kind of things that help grow a business, and also acknowledge where the business is at and where it wants to go. So that's a bit about Gro-Agri. I started it when I realised that I still wanted to work, and still needed to follow a passion. And that's where Gro-Agri was formed.
So you are a mother, and you said you're a dairy farmer's wife.
Yes.
That in and of itself, like there's 2 full-time occupations. You're driven.
Yeah. Oh, completely. And previously, prior to this year, I would have said that being so driven and perfectionism was, it helped me. But nearly it became my downfall as well.
Okay.
But we're working on that.
Okay. Well, you see, your biggest strength can also be your biggest weakness as well. And I think that's a huge thing for, everybody to kind of realise
and
that.
Acknowledge and identify that it can be both.
Absolutely, because I keep saying it to my husband, none of us are perfect.
Oh, no,
definitely
not.
And he, I know he thinks otherwise, and I'm sure your husband thinks the same. So prior to opening your own business, you've mentioned that you've worked in HR, and I can only begin to imagine how you would balance that with family life and being a young wife and young mother. And I know from my own experience that trying to balance work-life balance, it's an art form in and of itself. So I came away from our chat when our paths crossed, and I began to realise that my art form and your art form are 2 totally different. They're not even in the same universe, because yours took on a much more difficult aspect personally in relation to your health, and also professionally in relation to the kind of the conflict of interests that you faced within your job, the rigor and role of your post, with your own sense of ethics and morality. And you had these two wars waging side by side at the same time. So can you talk us through the difficulties that you experienced at this time, professionally and personally, in relation to the issues that I've just outlined there?
Yeah, I suppose, like, and then during our conversation, we talked about faith. And for me, faith is something that is incredibly important to me. And I wouldn't be sitting where I'm at now if I didn't have my faith. And I suppose that'll take me back to Gro-Agri as well, because I know I'd mentioned to you that I, in no sense of the word, had any plan to start Gro-Agri. And it's nearly ironic because any of my clients would say, I am so, so to the T when it comes to planning and strategy. And I need to go on a plan. And Gro-Agri was not planned in any sense. And I even sometimes think, I'm like, I actually started that and I didn't sit down and go through the figures or plan how I was going to launch it.
It's nearly divine providence. It was
like an overnight thing. And I remember saying to Mummy, and she was like, what is wrong with you? Like, could you not just for 5 minutes just forget about work and like just focus on you? And I was like, I can't, like, I need to do it. It has to come. And even more ironically then, I wasn't planning it to grow or, but from it then growing faith became a thing as well.
Okay.
And that's again going back to the faith thing. So growing faith is a kind of another branch of Gro-Agri, but it is one-to-one career mentoring and business planning, but particularly for those who rely on their faith to make decisions.
So what I'm hearing from you, Bronagh, in relation to the question there is that for you, there was no separation between your faith and your values and your personal family life and your faith and your values and your work life. One permeated, it does, absolutely. Yeah. And so you weren't prepared to sacrifice or to, I suppose, ignore or maybe play down that role of...
No, not at all. Like, I am somebody who will not do something if I feel that it is affecting my morals, or if I feel in my heart of hearts it's not right. I can't do it. And I have found that in previous roles where, decisions are expected of you and you get that and you want to go to work and do the best, but you also want to leave work knowing that you have stuck by your guns and that you haven't been walked over just to keep somebody else happy. And, like, when it comes to making business decisions where there's finances, when there's people involved, like, for me, my morals was just something that...
Was it a series of, was it a series of small events, like the kind of sum of the big picture? Or was there one big thing in particular, that moment where you said, no, I have to step away from this?
Not really. I think, even throughout all of my career, I've kind of careers, whether it's HR, whether it's management or business or leadership, there's always just points where you just have to step back and, with respect, say that I'm sorry, but that's a decision I'm not prepared to take, or that's something that I'm not prepared to do. Like my last role when I was managing farm business programs, in my head, that was my dream job. And it was my dream job. I had a great team, great manager, loved what I did, loved who I worked with, loved the farmers that I worked with. And it wasn't morals that took me away from it. It was my health.
Okay.
But I believe that everything happens for a reason. Every reason has a season. And right now, this is the season where I'm at.
So the two things came together, and rather than you thinking, this isn't fair, or perhaps challenging, well, why me?
Yeah.
This was something that you said, look, this is where I am. This is, I can do one of two things with this. I can embrace it.
Yeah.
And go in the direction that I am being taken rather than the direction that I want to be taken.
Yeah, rather than fight it.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it came to the decision of I either sacrifice my health and work on a job that, yes, I do love, or I sacrifice my main job and my most important job, and that's being a mother.
Yeah.
So,
there are so few. I think that the world around us today has really, and I don't know why, but really downplayed the importance of that role.
yeah.
And it's a job, but it's so much more than that. I don't
completely.
think there's an adjective that is worthy of describing the privilege of being a mother, the responsibility of being a mother, and you don't get time off for good behavior or holidays or anything like that. And certainly what I find, my children are much bigger than yours are at the minute. I thought that whenever they reached 18, tick, box done, I'm needed in ways that I could never have anticipated.
My mum, I would agree with you there.
And I'm like, okay, this just isn't, how I thought it was going to be. But the other side is I'm loving it.
Yeah. What a privilege.
Yes, absolutely. And I've been promoted. I'm now not just a mummy, I'm a granny as well. So it's even better. So I think that's really important for young mothers and young women today to hear that motherhood is perhaps one of the most challenging, but ultimately one of the most rewarding roles that you can have.
No matter how bad your day has been, having that privilege of tucking your children into bed at night, like what more in the world could you want?
Yeah.
But it's gone back to that role. I think particularly now in this climate, just in general, I know that from I was a young child, my parents, and they were doing it for my benefit. You need to go to school. You need to get a good education. You need to go to uni. You need to do well.
Yes.
Whereas the boys, it was like, sure, they'll be grand. Sure, they can walk on to a site. And, like my mummy and daddy always pushed me because they want me to do better, than the chances. They never got the chances to go to university.
Absolutely.
Things like that. But I think we're under so much pressure to be this powerhouse, and we can be, but not at the expense of losing your health or your family or memories or time.
And I think that's something, again, and I know we're kind of going down, I suppose we're two women, so we're going to go down the female route there as well. But what I think is that no one person, irrespective of gender, can have it all and do it all at once. You're always sacrificing something at the altar of something else.
There's a plate dropping somewhere.
Yes, and that's essentially what it is. So I think it's very important to know that if you are choosing to do something, that's going to come with a caveat and a cost, and it's like the small writing at the bottom of a contract. There are terms and conditions with that. So it's to be very mindful of that as well. You've mentioned your health there a couple of times. I don't know, and you don't have to answer this. Do you want to share some of the health challenges that you've had to overcome? That you've managed to go ahead and think, well, I'm going to open up my own business, all while still being a mummy and still being a dairy farmer's wife, which I know is 24/7 as well. Like you didn't, it's there's no time off there either because it doesn't stop.
Farming doesn't stop at 5 o'clock. But I suppose for me, I grew up in that environment, so that's normal.
It's your lifeblood,
But yes, I have had, I've had health conditions for quite a number of years. When I was 20, I was diagnosed with kidney disease. Spent about 5 weeks in Antrim Hospital, but got over it grand, that was fine. And then a year later was diagnosed with lupus. And really for kind of the next 7-8 years, I managed them quite reasonably. You know, you just take your medication, watch what you're eating, look after yourself as best you can. And that was fine. And then 2 years ago, just 2 years past, I got pregnant with number 3. And she's here, thank God, safe and well. But from early on in that pregnancy, things took a bit of a dramatic turn. I kind of knew from the beginning of the pregnancy that things just weren't right. But when you're going to the doctors, well, you're pregnant, of course you're going to be tired, of course, you know. And I just thought, no, I'm going to have to keep pushing on because something isn't right. So transpired then, from about 8 weeks, I rang the doctor one day. I just could barely move. I couldn't even lift my leg, particularly my right leg. I could not even lift it. I had to get my husband to carry me into the car. And then we went to the doctors, got bloods and everything, all the tests done, and went back to bed for the next couple of days and thought, right, we're maybe over it. Maybe it's just a wee bit of a blur or a bump in the road. Then a couple of days later, the consultant rang me, and I had just told my other 2 that we were going to go to Donegal for a couple of days because Mummy had been sick and we were going to go and have some time out and, you know, enjoy the beach and the good weather. And the consultant rang. He says, "Where are you going?" I says, "I'm just getting ready. I'm about to jump in the car here, going to Donegal for holidays." And he says, "No, you're not." I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You're coming to Antrim now." I was like, right, God, what was wrong? Anyway, landed in Antrim with the direct assessment unit, and my kidney disease had relapsed particularly bad. So I have a kidney disease called nephrotic syndrome, and basically the filters work the wrong way. So instead of losing the bad stuff and keeping the good stuff, my kidneys do the opposite. So extremely rare. My nephrologist, my rheumatologist, my obstetrician, none of them had experienced it before. So when I arrived in Antrim that day, just in a wee small room, there was just doctors coming in. They were like sardines.
Yeah.
It was like a wee test case. So from that day,
Very frightening, I can imagine.
it was.
Yeah. Can I ask how far along in your pregnancy you were?
Yeah, so that was from the 8 weeks.
8 weeks, so that early?
That early.
Okay.
And I'd always been advised, you know, that I have to be very careful because of my kidneys. But prior to getting pregnant, you know, I had thought that they were doing okay.
Yeah.
You know, they were manageable. And usually in pregnancy, if you have any kind of autoimmune disease, it nearly helps it.
Okay.
But that was not the case for
No,
me.
you know that saying, there's always an exception to the rule. I think you're the personification of that, are you?
That was it. So what followed was nothing short of a dramatic few months. I spent, I do not know how many nights in and out of hospital. And it was just so many, you know, it was always, right, if we can just make another week. That's how it was, you know. My obstetrician and the nephrologist had warned me early, you know, if you get to 28 weeks, that'll be amazing, you know.
So you were fighting to do everything within your power to keep this little...
Yeah, this wee baba.
Yes.
Inside.
Yes.
You know, and every kind of appointment you went to, it was always thinking of the worst. And I had to just leave every appointment thinking, no, we will make through, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, you've been admitted and they were like, right, we're maybe going to have to give you the injections, the steroids, just in case she needs to come. And then you would manage to leave and you didn't get them and you were thinking, thank God.
Okay.
But although that pregnancy, it was traumatic and it was scary, but she's here. And
I've met her and she is just adorable. She is an absolute gift. She really is.
Her name is Gianna and it means God is gracious. And I have no doubt that she is my miracle. Mm-hmm. And I know I'd mentioned to you, you know, there was prayers coming from every corner of this world. And she's named St. Gianna for a very special reason. And that is after St. Gianna. St. Gianna is the patron saint of mothers and unborn children. And she's an amazing story. And her daughter is actually still alive, Gianna Emmanuel. And I'm very privileged to have a relic from her daughter.
Oh, wow.
So I carried that with me like it was my most prized possession. And I had said to you as well, you know, I'm part of a group called the Sisterhood of Travel and Relics. And that's where we post out prayer cards which have been touched to the relic of St. Gianna, to women who request them if they're having difficulties getting pregnant or if they're having troubled pregnancies and, you know, mothers in general. So with that, then there just was so, like throughout the pregnancy, as hard as it was, there was just so many little moments of grace. There was one point where they thought I had DVT, so deep vein thrombosis, and I was really, really unwell at that point. I think Gianna was about 24, 25 weeks, and you know they weren't very good at that stage. And this woman who I'd never met in my life before arrived at Antrim Hospital with Padre Pio's met. She had seen that the Sisterhood of Travelling Relics had requested prayers for myself and Gianna, and she's actually local to myself. She's about 5 minutes away, and she drove to Dungannon to get the man and the mitt and brought them to Antrim Hospital. And I left hospital the next day.
Okay.
Never met the woman before in my life, and just
It was just, she was
she
sent
just
to you.
yeah.
Yeah.
And from meeting her that day, then so many other people have just came into my life that I could not be without now, and who have helped so much with my children, with the house, you know, during the pregnancy, you know. And I was never one for asking for help, you know, like previously, and I'd said, you know, my strength was my downfall. I was so independent and so determined. I'd be like, God, I don't need anybody's help.
Yeah,
You know, I'll do it myself. Sure, who needs to sleep?
Very hot. Who needs to sleep? A mummy.
You know, it was, but as I said, you know, every reason has a season. And over the last 2 years, I have had to learn a lot.
Quite you know, I'm listening, I'm looking at you, and you are, for anybody who doesn't know you, and for anybody who is listening to this rather than watching it, you are the embodiment. You look wonderfully healthy. You look so beautiful, so vibrant.
Thank you.
You know,
I'll not get back out the door.
that anybody looking at you would not realize what you're dealing with on a day in and daily basis, because you are still coping with the aftermath of your health issues, which you had prior to your pregnancies, that and health issues that have been probably exacerbated by that. So really what I'm hearing is, you know, the and you won't like what I'm going to say, so you're just going to have to suck it up and take it, is the selflessness of that privilege of being a mother. I think that's very much what's coming through. You've mentioned your faith in this time. So your health took you away from your dream job. Which would have been a double whammy. You know, for anybody who is coming across, you know, life can jump up and bite you on the backside. So how did you manage the kind of the disappointment and the worry and the anxiety and all of those very human emotions that would come with this fusion of events, you know, that you couldn't possibly have foreseen?
Had it only been the difficulties in pregnancy, I would have been back at work, no problem.
Okay.
I would have found a way. Do you know?
I love the way you've said, had it only have been the difficulties with pregnancy, you would have found a way.
Yeah.
And in the background there as well, whilst you're doing everything that you can, you're obviously looking after yourself, you're looking after your little unborn Gianna. You have 2 small children at home who are obviously needing, that you're worried about, who are worried about mummy. You have your husband there as well. How, the pressure that as a family unit you must have been under.
Completely, but I'm so blessed in the fact of the family that I had. You know, my mummy and daddy are amazing. You know, you'd mentioned about, you know, the differences in being a mother now, and you know, you thought you wouldn't be needed as much. God help my mummy. I have needed her more in the last 2 years than, you know, I did from any stage. Her and daddy, you know, have had to give up so much over the last couple of years to be there and to help. For me, I didn't want the other two's routine to be disrupted, or, you know, the fact that mummy wasn't there to take them to training, so, or, you know, their other activities. I was so lucky to have my school mum friends, you know, the ones that were able to say, no, I've got them this evening, I'll lift them, they're sorted. And my sister-in-laws as well, you know, having that tight family unit, just, you're never not going to worry, but at least you know that when you're lying in a hospital
huge
bed,
stress away. Absolutely. So really the cornerstone, your support network there is family.
Oh, completely.
You know,
family and faith
is
the 2 pillars that, you know, if you haven't got them,
life's going to be very difficult. Very, very difficult. I'm just blown away by, you know, the absolute obstacles that you've had to overcome. So both, I'm just even know what it's like to carry children, you know, into relatively normal pregnancies, one more difficult than the other, not anything in your league at all. And the tiredness and the difficulties of that, I can empathize to a degree, but I can understand. I'm trying to get my head around just how difficult that must have been for you and for your family, and for you to be sitting with a smile on your face. Obviously, that has been a gift to you in some way, that you have been able to grow from that.
Oh, completely. I mean, nobody wants to be seriously ill or to have a pregnancy is difficult. But as I say, like, that's where my faith comes in. I have to trust that, you know, there was a reason that happened. And, you know, like, I pray every day that I will get better. And then I think to myself that, you know, like, he's already answered prayers when he got Gianna here safely. Like, that was my miracle. And, you know, like, me and my husband had to have so many difficult conversations during that pregnancy. You know, like, you always think to yourself, like, God, if something was to happen, you know, like, the baby has to come first. But that was a conversation that we, you know, had to have.
And it's a conversation that you will never forget having,
No.
you know, never ever forget having. And I can only begin to imagine the emotion. I can see the emotion in you now, and I am just blown away by it. And again, that comes from he was your rock, you're obviously his rock, and your family foundation is built very strongly upon the rock of the family that your parents brought you up in, and I'm sure your husband as well. And so it's that layer effect there, right there. It just comes down to that cornerstone. And, you know, I've a person's faith, I've just written here as a wee note to myself, that I know that for anybody listening to this, faith is a very personal and private thing. And I'm so privileged that you are sharing your experience, faith experience. I think it's so uplifting and so important for others to hear that. And there may be people who are listening to this who wouldn't be able to who maybe don't have that gift of faith. So how has your faith helped you to overcome and transcend this suffering, the very real health issues that you endured in your pregnancy with the beautiful Gianna, and the complications that you still suffer today?
Yeah. My faith has been, as you said, tested. I thought after I had Gianna, I was like, this is it. Okay, now we're on the path to recovery. I'm going to go back to normal. I have now, only this 2 years later, realised I'm not going to go back to the normal. The pre-Gianna Bronagh she's not there. When Gianna was about 5 months old, I started a new biologic and immunotherapy treatment because things still weren't improving in regards to the kidneys or the lupus. And you were still trying to, get on every day and pretend, that makeup and dressing yourself nicely is great for putting a show on and, letting people think you're okay.
Yeah, you put your mask on. Yeah.
And, I would be very much like that. And I've always kind of been that way that, what's happening inside the house, just leave it there and go on about your day. But anyway, I started the treatment about 5 months old, when she was 5 months old, and things did not go well after that. I had really, really bad side effects. Felt like I was on a boat that was tipping the whole time. I just could not get balance. I was having blurry vision and really bad headaches. And I actually went to the hospital one night and they were like, oh, you just had a migraine. I was like, I just don't think this is a migraine. And had complete right-sided weakness. Even now, I have no feeling on the right side of my foot. So anyway, I told the doctors, I was like, look, something is not right. And they were like, okay, let's investigate. So I went for an MRI and very quickly got a call back just a few days after it to say that there was 2 clots in the left frontal lobe. So it had a stroke.
Oh my God. Oh my goodness.
So that was the headache.
That was your headache. That's what you were told was just a migraine when Gianna was just 5 months
old.
So you had come through you were 8 weeks pregnant with all of the difficulties. Your kidney disease had flared up, your lupus, the difficulties carrying Gianna, all of the annoyance. Gianna arrived safely. You had that joy. And then, bam, you have the rug whipped out from underneath you again to discover that you've had a stroke.
Yeah.
At what age were you, if you don't mind me asking?
So that was just May last year.
Oh my goodness.
31.
Oh my goodness.
Ultimately, it's because the kidneys were putting the heart under so much pressure. And I mentioned earlier, about the filters going the wrong way. So that increases the risk of clots. So I thought, right, okay, he has sent enough. I have accepted them gracefully to this stage, but we're moving on and we're not.
You're just like saying, enough.
I was like,
enough.
I've had this conversation. We're finished. So anyway, started new biologics and new treatment. And, a year later, I'm actually starting a new treatment next week. Because we just can't get it settled.
Can I just interject just 1 minute? How the mental resilience that it takes for you, and I'm talking about you as an individual, to kind of face that just as a person and to deal with the physicality of that, the mental headspace that you need for that. But you're doing that, and you also now have 3 young children to deal with. And I'm just going over this for everybody listening because my head's about to explode just at the minute. You have 3 young children. Yeah. You're a wife to a dairy farmer who it never stops. Yeah. And you've opened your own business in the middle of all this. So I just want to make sure that that's the context that we're getting. So sorry for cutting you off there, but that has just...
I think for me, I probably always need to keep busy.
Okay.
But I am, not ashamed to talk about, with my friends or my family, like I will have a bad day. And, like particularly if my kidneys are having a bad day. I mean, like last week I spent 3 days in bed because I physically,
You couldn't do it.
I couldn't get up. And that's where I say like the cornerstone of the help that I have is
It's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Can I also just say that you prefixed what you were about to say there with I am not ashamed? Why would you even feel the need to say that? The fact that you obviously have a mindset that if you have 3 bad days where you're unable to function, on the days that you're up, you're out. I know that before you came here today, you have run your children to swimming, to summer camps, and you are literally, pardon this agri pun, but making hay while the sun shines. So every day for you is a gift.
Yeah. And like anybody with a chronic illness will understand the days that you feel okay are the days you're powering, because you're like, I don't know what tomorrow brings. So yeah, the last 2 years have tested my faith in ways I didn't think that they could be tested. But here we are. So yeah, after that I thought, right, okay, he's finished with me now. He's given me enough. And then in January of this year, I was supposed to return to work. But the week before I was going to return to work, I was supposed to go to Holland for a trip related to agriculture. Something I was so looking forward to. And 2 days before I was about to go, ended up back in hospital. So I had pericarditis.
You had
pericarditis, which is inflammation of the lining of the heart.
Oh my goodness.
So that just, well, I don't want to say the nail in the coffin because that's not the phrase I want to go for.
No, but it was just you had reached your limit.
Yeah, I just was like, okay, obviously work is not where I am supposed to be thinking about right now. And that's where I had to say, I have to just hang up the bits here, and
I have to accept
that my place right now is to be at home and trying to recover.
And I know this is maybe, and again, you don't have to answer it. Was that a difficult thing to accept?
At the time, really difficult.
Okay.
As I said, like I am so driven. Like if I say there's something I want to do, like hell or high water, like
isn't going to stop
it's not going to stop me. But I just realised at that point that something has to give.
Yeah.
Like even though I was on maternity leave and I was still always thinking about work.
You were thinking, right, when I am fit and able and I'm going to get back, this is what it was that do. It was that little thing that you were holding on to for you.
Yeah, it was my identity.
Yes.
It was the identity before I was pregnant. It was Bronagh and where I worked. And I found that really, really hard to let go of that identity, because that was...
I find that quite striking that you talk about, that Bronagh as a very different person.
Yeah.
And, it's like a watershed moment in your life. So Gianna and has, in terms of her conception, you're carrying her, that's a watershed moment. That's when the tide of your life was really shifting into a direction. You were going into uncharted waters and you were doing it in a storm. I'm trying to get all the biblical parable puns in here as well, and I'm laughing at that because it was, when I say I'm laughing, I'm trying to bring humor in to lighten, because I'm listening to it and I'm feeling the weight of that. So I cannot imagine what you were going through.
I laugh, almost at it as well, because sometimes I think in my head it's so unbelievable that did I make it up, or is it all in my head? But no, it definitely all happened. But when you're a mother and when you have 3 children that are relying on you and need their mother in their life, you just have to power on through. But that was the moment I was like, I just held my hand up and I surrendered.
Okay. I like that phrase, I surrendered. And if I get it wrong, just say, no, Sheila, you're way off on a tangent. From that moment, that was another watershed moment for you, where when you accepted that, it lifted the burden of trying to control, because you're speaking to a fellow control freak here. So I am, and I think there's a reason that our paths have crossed, because I like to, know exactly where I'm going, know exactly what I'm doing, like even down to a silly thing like going on a family trip. Our ones, I'm the butt of a lot of jokes, because they'll ask me, to see the itinerary.
What time do we
Yes,
get there?
My husband's not even allowed to carry his own passport. Nothing at all. I'm just, and it's a strength, but I also know it's my biggest flaw. So those words, I surrender, are why I'm going to say that you would say, you're sitting here so together, so glamorous, so beautiful, so strong, in who you are, what you're doing, and you don't know what's tomorrow's going to bring, and you're okay with that.
Yeah, like I'd said this to a friend a couple of weeks ago. I could literally spend every day waking up thinking, am I going to have another stroke? What peace is that going to bring me?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have no choice in the day and hour that,
you go,
and I don't want it to be depressing, because I'm
no,
trying
but
to,
it's one of the certainties that you have in life is death. And you have had to face your mortality from a very, very young age. Really, I suppose when you were first diagnosed at 20, that kind of, I remember being 20 and I felt immortal. I never once thought about, that fallacy of youth, and this is the way it's going to be forever. Yeah. I woke up this morning, I'm like, was I not just 20 yesterday?
But even at that age, like that happened in March, and I moved to Liverpool in September.
Okay.
I have just always had that mindset of,
it's not going to hold me back. I'm going to, okay.
But I think this year, sometimes you just have to.
It has a new gravitas to it. It has and there's a whole host of things that you could waken up each morning and think, why focus in on the negative?
Yeah.
Because whilst that may be a possibility, it's also equally not a possibility, and there will be something else brilliant that may happen, may not happen.
I did not think this time last year that I could have a work day that consisted of seeing the brain injury nurse in the morning and a business meeting in the evening. But sure, and I'm grateful the fact that even after everything that's happened, I can still, I still have that as a part of myself.
You absolutely, your identity now, the person that you are now, it's almost like the Bronagh before Gianna. You've kind of broken that mold, and you are so much more now than you were then. That
with every test, everything brings its lessons and its learnings, and I have learned so much about discernment, and rather than putting myself on rigid schedules and that bit of planning, and I can't plan for every eventuality.
Yeah.
None of us can.
Yeah.
We can try to, but we don't know what spanner's thrown out that day. So it is learning that, art of, look, what happens today will happen today. We'll worry about tomorrow.
And put it into the hands of the man above.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Very powerful life experience, and the wisdom that you are sharing, Bronagh, is absolutely phenomenal. It's inspirational. And those, I'm hearing what I'm saying, and I know that they're trite words, but they're not meant like that, because, and I'm never lost for words, as anyone who knows me will tell you, but I don't have the words to respond to what you have just told me.
But in my head, I know there's people much worse off than me. So I'm grateful for the fact that despite everything that's happened, and, you know, I'd mentioned to you, you know, after the pericarditis, I thought this is definitely it.
Mm-hmm.
And then in March, I had another mini stroke. And I just thought at that point, you know, like, that's the point where I had to be like, you know what? I can't worry about tomorrow anymore.
And I'm just trying to get the timeline.
Yeah.
So May of last year, you had the stroke. January of this year,
Yep.
pericarditis.
Yeah.
And then March,
Yep.
another
mini stroke.
stroke.
I actually got day release in from hospital to go to my son's first confession, and then had to be
See, I told you about the goosebumps.
I had a very good doctor who I actually had went to school with, and told him the situation. He was like, escape and don't be back by.
Okay.
That was for me something I wasn't prepared to miss. So yeah, I got day release and straight back in. So that was March.
Most people are submitting a request for cover. If for me, I'm thinking if I have an event like that, I will submit a request for cover from my principal. You're in hospital and you're asking for an hour to get out, and your doctor's saying escape, but be back here by kind of that's what I mean.
I have always made a promise to my children that I will never miss the events, the big things, and I will always be there for them. And you know what? Now in the position that I am with consultancy, I can manage my diary based on making sure my health is as well as it can be, and that I am not missing my time with my children.
It's almost as if there's a deity there that's saying, look, Bronagh, this is what, this is where you think you need to be. I know what is going to happen here. So I'm going to shift you over here where you can manage it all and just go with it. Surrender.
Like, I know, looking back now, the life I was living was not sustainable.
Okay.
And it goes back to that perfectionism thing. Trying to be the perfect mother, trying to be the perfect wife, trying to be the perfect person at work. You can't live like that.
No, because it puts a pressure. And I do think that the world today
completely
really, really, really sells that image of perfection and sets the bar to a level that if you're achieving it here, you're not achieving it over here. And the message hasn't quite filtered through to everybody that there's no way that you can do it all the time in a way that's going to be sustainable.
Yeah. Oh, completely. And I had that conversation with a friend last night. She's actually in America, and she said to me, I was going to ask you how you do it all, but I know that people ask me that, and my response is God's grace.
Yeah.
There is none of us that are doing it all.
Absolutely
not. Social
not.
media is the biggest,
That's a podcast all in of itself, isn't it? It's the being of the 21st century.
You're getting one picture of somebody's full day. You're getting the one good part of their day.
And you're not seeing the humdrum.
No, and you know what? Like, isn't it fantastic that as women we can be powerhouses at work, but we can be powerhouses at home too?
Mm-hmm.
Like, not one size fits all.
Mm-hmm.
We are all not called to be the same thing.
And how wonderful is that?
How wonderful is that?
Because we learn from each other. And, what I have learned from you today, I'm going to take away and filter and apply that in my own life, because your acceptance is something that I find so remarkable. And your resilience, that's not something that can be cultivated alone. And that's important that you...
I am only resilient in sitting where I am now because of the family and the friends that I have.
Yeah.
that's where I find my strength. And the fact that what a privilege it is that I am still here and get to tuck my children in at night. Or, like last week we escaped and went to the beach. Like what a privilege that during the summer holidays I'm actually getting to spend my time with my children. And I have a great childminder as well. Like I would be lost without her on the days that I can't get out of bed.
Yeah.
She is there in my home with my children and helping in every
And
way that can.
their routine
Stays the
isn't
same.
interrupted. And your children, you speak about them with such love, as I think all mothers can relate to. But what the value added in terms of what they're learning from you from a young age about resilience, about acceptance, about family, about faith, about perseverance, about not giving up, and about surrendering. You have to surrender. You have to give in. You have to accept not, and I don't want to say your lot in life, because then people might read that as being, well, I shouldn't try, or I shouldn't aspire to anything else.
We all have our crosses to bear. There's not one of us in this world who does not have a trouble or a problem at home. But you can work through it. But I'm trying to teach my children that kind of balance of don't give up, keep going. But at the same time, if it's your health or your family that you're going to lose at that point, you have to.
You have to have your priorities right, and that's certainly something that I think that I can, empathy. I can say that I am on the same experience platform with you, because the constant job that I am and that I have, and the kind of title, that I am most proud of, and the one that I will never retire from, is that role of being a mother, and it really has been one of the most rewarding joys of my life. And I realize, because I know there are so many people out there who would love the gift of motherhood, who would love to be, I realize that I'm very privileged, and it has enriched my life so much, in a way that my profession won't ever be able to touch. And don't get me wrong, I love my job. I love what I do. I love everything else about that. But it's in a different league. It's a world of itself. So I think, that brings us full circle right back to where we started from. And, audience or listeners now know that the backdrop that you have decided to launch your own business. So I will say that I think that you are the walking definition for the statement that faith and fear are incompatible. So with that in mind, Bronagh, what words of wisdom do you have for any young woman or young mother or any young person who may be facing any trial in their life?
So I think really faith to me isn't about everything making sense. It's about trusting that sometimes it doesn't make sense, and that's okay. The fact that you can have something to rely on, and not every prayer will be answered. And, go back to the Garth Brooks song.
That's
prayers.
Immediately when you said that, some of God's kindest things are the prayers that he doesn't answer. Yeah.
And really, life is such a precious gift. Every day we get up and we are blessed that we can go outside, or that our children are at our feet, because in some other household that's not the case for that day. And it's just about embracing that every day. And instead of saying, things like, I have to take the children to training tonight, I get to take them to training tonight. And what a privilege is that I can stand at the sidelines this time this year and watch them, when last year I was relying on everybody else to get them there.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I think it's such a powerful story for all people to hear today, irrespective of age or gender, because when you accept and when you relinquish control to the man that knows what he's doing, everything will work out as it should. And that's wonderful. So thank you, Bronagh, for joining us today. I hope it was good. I can't make a cup of tea. I did warn her about that before we came up. That is not one of my gifts, but it was drinkable. Yeah, we'll get another one now, I think.
Sounds good.
That's it for today.